That photo of a rainbow over the church tower against the grey sky was taken a couple of weeks ago by one of our near neighbours who sent it to me. And I thought it was a particularly appropriate photograph because, you see, the last 15 months have undoubtedly been some of the most challenging and difficult times that we've gone through, both personally and also as a church. And we need a source of hope as we look to the future. But as we do slowly emerge out of lockdown, although there may be some speed bumps on the way, and as we look forward to the prospect of restrictions easing, there is a particular picture that I keep coming back to that I found quite helpful. When, in my last parish down in Sussex, we lived about an hour's drive from Eurotunnel. And so on several occasions, we went on short day trips to France. And I remember the very first time I went on Eurotunnel in 2005. We were leaving the UK, a country we knew really well and were very familiar with. And we were entering a long tunnel where our actions and our abilities were severely restricted, knowing that when we emerged from that tunnel, we'd be in a different country, France. And in France, many things will be familiar. The weather, the infrastructure, McDonald's, because it's the same the world over. But we also knew that things would be different, significant things would be different. The language, the customs, the laws, the culture. And that means we had a very simple choice to make. Did we carry on as if we were still in the UK and only embrace France when we absolutely had to, like driving on the other side of the road? Or did we adapt to being in France because that's the reality of where we were? Now, of course, we didn't have to make that choice. We were only there for a day. We could stay within our own UK bubble for that short amount of time. But what if we'd been permanently relocating to France with no going back? Well, then it would be a different matter. Then the choice between carrying on or adapting would take on a greater significance. It would mean the difference between being involved and thriving or being isolated and detached. Now, no illustration is perfect, but I suspect you can probably work out where I'm going with this one. We have been travelling through our own tunnel of lockdown with restrictions on our actions and our behaviour in these past 15 months or so. And we knew we'd emerge from it eventually. And when we did emerge from it, we'd be in a different country, a different place than before we entered lockdown. And it's in that context we need, as a church, to prayerfully and practically look to the future. Now, our calling as a church is the same as it's always been. It's expressed in our mission statement. We want to see an ever-increasing number of people coming into an ever-deepening relationship with God, overflowing with his blessing to our community and beyond. But we do need to realise that we are in a different country from March 2020. And there'll be so much about the new country that will be the same as the old country. And there are things that we want to hold on to and re-establish because it was right and worked then, and it's still right, and it will work now. But there'll be much about the new country that will be different, and we'll either recognise that immediately or come to realise that gradually. So as we plan and prepare for the future as a church, as we think about our future mission and ministry, we have a basic, simple choice that we need to make. Do we carry on as if we're still in the old country, or do we adapt because we're not? To carry on, well, that's the safe option because it's familiar. But I believe if we do that, then we face the real risk of becoming detached from the community around us who will be living in this new country, and that will become mainly inward looking, and that it will lead possibly to long-term decline. And that's something none of us want. But to adapt is the harder option because it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable, it's also slightly terrifying. But if we do that, and if we decide to do that, I believe it will lead to greater connection and engagement with our community and our town. That will lead us to thrive and to grow in the long term. And that's something that all of us want. Now, I hope you'll agree that we do need to adapt. But if you do, you're probably thinking about another question. Yes, but how? How do we do that? Now, the obvious answer is for me to outline a specific and a thorough action plan filled with practical details about the what and the when of structures and strategies and staffing and service patterns and programs for the coming month, a timetable of what's going to happen and when. But how we use the resources that God has given us to bless our community and to be a beacon for the gospel so that more people become Christians and grow as Christians, they're important questions. The what and the when are very important questions, and we will get to them. But it's the wrong place for us to start as a church family as we emerge into this new country. Because before we get to those specific details, there is a key question that we need to prayerfully and to practically answer first. A question that we need to answer, because if we don't get the answer to that question right, then it won't matter what our specific plans are. They won't make a difference, and they won't work. And that question is this: what foundation stones must our future mission and ministry at All Saints be built on? What foundation stones must our future mission and ministry at All Saints be built on? And I believe there are 4 of them. That as a church family, we need to, number 1, have a faith in Jesus Christ that is wholehearted, dynamic, present tense, and obvious. Number 2, we need to have a commitment to All Saints that shows itself in proactive fellowship, proactive involvement, proactive service, and proactive giving. 3, we need to have an outwardly facing attitude that shows itself in putting the needs of others first and shows sacrificial generosity with the resources that God has given us. And number 4, we need to be mission-centred in everything we do, embracing change and taking risks where necessary creatively for the sake of the gospel. I think those 4 foundations are so important, are so critical, that as a whole church we need to prayerfully reflect on what that means for us and what they mean for us individually as well as together. And to help us to do that, I'm exhorting everyone in the church family to take part in a 4-session course beginning between the annual meeting on May 24th and Sunday, July the 4th, about a 6 to 7 week period. Each of those 4 sessions will consist of a video, which will be available on our YouTube channel, which has me talking from a biblical perspective about one of those 4 foundation stones. And it will be accompanied by links to other resources and also follow-up discussion questions for small groups to work through. Because we want everyone to engage with this material, because we believe it's so important. And because we want everyone to engage with this material, we're making it available to be accessed in several different ways so that everybody has a way that they can engage in the material. It's available through the existing life groups, who during that 6-7 week period will be using this material in their groups. It could be through a special in-person group on a Wednesday afternoon in church, or a special Zoom group on a Thursday evening that will run just for the length of these sessions and will be open to anyone. It could be through an existing prayer triplet or prayer partnership if you're part of one, or you could form one just for this particular course. If none of those are possible, then maybe you could meet with a few church family members, meeting together just for this course. And if that isn't possible, well, the material can be used individually at home. And if for some reason you can't access the internet, you aren't able to get onto YouTube, well, the sessions can be provided on DVD or CD as an audio file with all the paperwork accompanying it, if that would work for you better. I really hope that everybody in the church family engages and gets involved with this material, because these questions and these foundation stones are so important. Now, I'd welcome feedback from those 4 sessions, because that will feed into our PCC meeting on July the 12th, and it'll also help with the preparation of the 5th session that will be available from mid-July onwards. And that session will give practical details about our specific plans from August onwards. Now, I believe that this course will be one of the most significant things that we do as a whole church together, and I really encourage you to prioritise being involved in it if at all possible. In fact, I think it's so important that though church meetings are brilliant, midweek church meetings in that 6 to 7 week period will be kept to a bare minimum. Now, underneath this video, you'll find a questionnaire, and if you're accessing this in different ways, we'll send this to everyone by email this week. It's a link to a questionnaire where you can indicate how you would like to access and use this material, so we can plan and prepare accordingly, particularly if you'd like to come to the in-person group on a Wednesday afternoon or the Zoom group on a Thursday evening. And if you could complete that as soon as possible, that'll be really helpful. But most importantly of all at this point, we need to pray for God's wisdom, and we need to pray for God's guidance as we emerge into this new country. And that reminds me of one of my favourite Bible verses. It's a Bible verse you're most likely to find me writing in a card or writing in a book if someone asks me to. It's Proverbs chapter 3 and verses 5 to 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. As we enter this new country, in the coming weeks and months, with all the uncertainties, with all our questions, with all the opportunities, and with all the challenges, we need God to make our paths straight. But what those verses promise is when we trust him completely, when we obey him wholeheartedly, when we acknowledge him unreservedly, that he will lead us, and wherever he leads us, it'll be the right path to take. Let me pray. Father God, thank you that you give us a path to walk as we emerge into this new country. May this course for all of us be a challenge, an encouragement, and a source of hope. Help us, Lord, as we navigate all the uncertainties, to trust in you, that we may thrive and we may grow, that we may adapt where we need to, and we may carry on where we must. But help us to be looking to you as we walk into the future. We ask these things in your name. Amen.